when you're going out and having date nights, like obviously there's so much of your relationship that you could capture.
Yes.
How do you ascertain what you share and what you don't share? Is there certain, like, I know that you've mentioned before that you guys avoid like kissing in any of your content, but is there anything that you've kind of really consciously been like, we're not putting that on TikTok, but we'll put that on TikTok kind of thing?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, if it was to come to like a date night, it's usually like just a conversation, like, do you feel like filming tonight or no?
Sure.
And then being like, yeah, like I'm happy to film, like let's do it. And then, you know, go from there. And then that's what goes on TikTok. Obviously, like our more intimate moments, we choose not to share online. We show intimacy and admiration for each other in so many different ways in the content. We don't think that like kissing or showing affection has to be a part of that. We don't show much PDA in public anyway. So, you know, we're not like kissing and cuddling in front of our friends or at the cafe. Yeah. So it kind of feels like normal and authentic for us to show up the same way online.
Of course.
Totally agree. And I just think like being a couple's account, sometimes there is a pressure to like prove that you're a couple, but like,
especially when you're in a lesbian relationship, people see two girls and they're like, can you kiss to prove you're in a relationship? And it's like,
stop. Have people actually commented that?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah. We used to get it a lot when we were live streaming as well. I think that was kind of like what made us consciously think like, do we want to show us kissing online? And it was a conversation that we had really, really early on in the journey because I remember when we started live streaming, our comments were like flooded with just the word kiss that so much so like we literally had to block it in our live streams. And so that was kind of a conversation of like, oh, I don't really want to give that to people. Like that's for us.
Totally.
And I don't want people to follow us just to sexualize us either.
Yeah.
I want them to follow us because they like enjoy the content or they like our personality.
Yeah.
So that was like a conscious decision.
Yeah.
And we do sometimes kiss in our content. It's just like not overdone to like perform that we're together kind of thing.
Totally. I think that's something that I'm really conscious of with my profile is like there's certain things that are for me.
Yeah.
And only for me. Like people just assume that when you're on social media, you're happy to share every part of your life. And you're like, oh, you actually don't realize how much of my life I don't share.
Yes.
And I think that that's one of the biggest misconceptions. What do you think a big like misconception is that people have about you guys?
I mean, a lot of people think that because I dress more masculine that I'm like the man of the relationship or like that I don't cry or anything, but I'm very like I have a masculine side and a feminine side and I enjoy like leaning into both, and I probably lean into my feminine more when I'm just with Alessia, no cameras, because I trust her and I know that I'm not going to be judged there, whereas I can't say the same about the internet and you know, so I think that's a misconception for me online.
Yeah, I love that.
Do you know yours?
I don't know if I can think of one.
Or any assumptions that people make about you guys as a couple?
I think some of our content, like it depends what shows up on people's For You page, right? I feel like some people don't even know we're together. Some people think that like we're best friends or we're cousins or we're sisters, I don't know. So that would probably just be one of them because they might see like me dressing Taz or they might see us playing the board game or Wavelength or something like that together and just be like, oh yeah, cool, two girls together who are like friends because there's no element of me being like, oh my God, I'm in love with you, you're my girlfriend, or this is my girlfriend, today we're going to go make dumplings or whatever it is. But it's really like if they're seeing our personal content or our vlogs or, you know, one of the videos of Taz being like, I'm going to call my girlfriend like 10 cute names today and get her reaction. So some people don't even know that we're in a relationship because the only content that the algorithm serves is our challengey kind of content and we're not really affectionate or girlfriends per se in that type of content.
Yeah. Okay. All right. I love it. What's your favorite channel? Do you have a favorite channel? Platform?
Oh,
TikTok.
TikTok is definitely
a favorite.
Why? For sure. I think there's so much opportunity there still. I think like just it's so underestimated still, which is so mind-boggling to me because we've seen so much opportunity come from the platform and the growth is still insane. The reach is still insane. Yes, it's not as much as what it was back in 2020, but it's still there. Like my personal account, I posted like a reintroduction to who I was outside of the couple's account and it got 800,000 views and I gained 20,000 followers in less than a week. And I'm like, it's still there. You just have to tap into it in a more personable and like creative way.
Yeah.
Hey, just a quick one. If you are loving this episode, help us grow and reach more people by hitting the subscribe button and leaving a review.
I think people, when they saw the drop of like views from the COVID days, they kind of started posting on other platforms, whereas we track all our accounts, Snapchat, Pinterest, LinkedIn, everything. And even on our worst month,
It's
TikTok still outperforms every channel for us. So, you know, it's just one of those platforms that you can be just a literal regular person living your life and have your life changed because of the discoverability on it, which I just haven't really seen on another platform yet.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we saw it with the Hoctor girl, right? Her life changed overnight. We were talking about this just before we started filming. I think that's, I completely agree with you. Like, I think TikTok, I was actually talking to Aiden about this before we started filming. I was like, TikTok people aren't tapping into. I think they're not making the most of it. And I don't think that you have to be great at it in order to do it well. You just have to kind of find the area that you want to kind of start sharing content in and start.
Totally.
Yeah.
Right? But so many people are, you know, oh, well, they've got 1 million followers. I'm not going to start. And it's just like, do you think that Instagram was like, Facebook already exists, I'm not going to launch? Like, no, right? So I just think, so with, you've grown your TikTok following to almost 1 million?
We're close.
50,000?
940,000, yeah.
From all over the world, these people are following you, which is pretty fucking cool.
Oh, it's
so
amazing.
cool.
It's
It's
like,
the
imagine
best.
almost 1 million people in the room just like listening to you.
That's crazy.
Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Wild.
Be shitting it.
I saw how nervous you were before you came in here and you're just talking to me, let alone 1 million people.
Yeah.
What is some advice? So if you had to go back and you're like first TikTok going up, whether it's on your own page or the couple's page that you posted together, what's some advice that you would have for yourselves starting again on that platform?
I would say to myself, post more. Like, we were posting 4 times a day. I would say post more. Like, the more you post, the more, not only do the more you get seen, obviously to a certain extent, you don't want to be spamming your account because then it'll get flagged. But the more you get seen and the more you learn, right? Like, the more I create, the more I understand how to create. And so, like, the more I video myself, the more comfortable I am on camera, the more comfortable I become speaking, the better my content gets, the more I understand where I want to take my account and what I want to do. And then I might find a new niche that I'm like enjoying and things like that. So the more content you create, the more you get out of it, not just in views, followers, likes, but you just become better at it. Like anything you do, right? The more you do it, the better you become.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, but like some practical things that I would implement straight away is always have my face on camera.
Yes.
Like, first frames need a face. And we learnt that just through posting a lot. And whenever we didn't show our face at the start, it just wouldn't perform as well. And I also would say to like leave like just the quirky parts of yourself in the video.
Yes.
Like, I think I would like always cut them out because I'm like, oh, that's embarrassing. Like, I did that thing. But that's like what makes us human, and people connect with the things in our background and the things that are just like random in the video too. So not worrying about it being perfect all the time and just like putting content out consistently is like my biggest tip.
Consistency has been like a massive key for us ever since we started, whether it was 4 times a day or like 1 time a day, which is where we're at the moment. It's always remained consistent.
Yeah.
I love that. I mean, consistency is king, right?
Yes.
And I think one of the biggest misconceptions about consistency is that it has to be every day.
No,
I'm like,
it's how you define it.
Consistency is like a cadence that you set for yourself that you stick to,
Yes.
right? Like, it doesn't have to be every day. It can be 3 times a week, but you just
Literally.
have to do it more than once.
Yeah,
Yes,
like
right?
we have a live stream that we do every Monday night. And it doesn't mean we're going to live stream throughout the week, but every Monday we show up for that and people expect it, and they're there before the stream's even on. They're waiting in the chat, like,
Stop.
you know, ready.
What do you live stream on Monday?
On what platforms?
What are you streaming? Like,
we live stream us cooking dinner.
okay.
It's called Tea with Tanda.
We're not cooks. Like
Okay.
it's just a common time of the week. Every Monday night we're home cooking.
Yeah.
And it's worked really well for us to be consistent on that night. If we did it on a Friday night, we wouldn't be able to show up all the time because friends and parties and events. So Monday has just worked really well for us, and it's just us like trying to cook something, usually burning our food in the background.
I think people actually show up to see us fail when we cook.
I mean, people love to see people fail. Yeah. Let me tell you, there are people waiting in the wings just waiting for someone to crash and burn. I feel it. You just mentioned live streaming, and I know Canvas Beauty recently got, I think, 1 million in sales from live streaming, which is wild.
Crazy.
Now, you guys are no novices when it comes to live streaming. And I know that you guys said that you did a 24-hour live stream for the All Kind to get more kind of good mates trained up, which I think is so cool. What do you love about live streams?
Oh, I love the community that live streaming has helped us create. Being able to talk one-on-one with the people who follow us has been incredible, because I feel like I learn so much about our community and our community members and what's going on in their lives that like it teaches me so much. And I just love that live streaming, it just gives me connection. And I feel like even throughout COVID, like that's what we were searching for a long time, because we were all so disconnected. But to be able to connect with people through live streaming and also entertain, because I really enjoy that too. That's been my favorite part of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, social media, like having a big following, it can become so like self-centered where everything is about you, you know, every day. And I feel like live streaming we don't make it about us. Yes, we're cooking in our kitchen, but we're asking people like what they did in their day and people are sharing back and forth. It's like an actual conversation and relationship. It's not like a one-sided thing, which has been really like great. And I mean, I just can't believe more people aren't live streaming. Like it's a no-brainer to me. People are literally missing out every second they wait. You're missing out because you get to show parts of your business or parts of yourself that just doesn't really kind of get shown in the content.
Yeah.
We try and show as much as we can in our content, but sometimes it's still not, it doesn't feel like we're human. And then you come to a live stream and then you're like, oh yeah. Like people have seen us cry, argue, everything on lives. Spending 24 hours on a live stream too, like you can't fake your personality like that. You
absolutely.
know?
You can't, and you can't fake energy, right?
No.
Like if you're not feeling it, like you said, there's some days that you don't feel like turning up, and there's some days that you do. And the Mondays might not be the day that you feel like turning up and the other person does.
Yes.
With live streaming then, I have another question, but that's separate. But with live streaming, where would you suggest for brands or businesses or individuals to start when it comes to live streaming? Like how do they get into it?
I feel like for brands, if they have a product, it's so easy because you can show how you use the product on a live stream, and just naturally people are going to be like interested, regardless if it's like a makeup product or a cleaning product. It doesn't have to be sexy.
Yeah.
It's people want to see things being like done. Like we made slime on a live stream.
Yeah, we had like 2,000 people watching at one time.
You know, and
they
that's
loved it.
Like if you sold slime, you're making a lot of money in that stream because people are like, where can I get it? And even in our Monday night live streams when we're cooking, when we finish and sit down and we're eating and we've put in our sauce on it, people are like, oh, what brand of sauce is that? What drink are you drinking? Everyone wants to know, like the pasta we use and everything. So I think for brands, there's just an opportunity there that if they can create a segment where they just use their product in the way it's organically meant to be used, people are going to be asking questions like, where can I get it from? How much does it cost? All those questions you want to answer for your customer, they're right there in real time for you.
In terms of like what platform to start on, I would recommend TikTok, because similarly to the videos, the TikTok algorithm sends it out to the public. It sends it out to heaps of people. So you're going to be able to reach a wider audience. Whereas I find when we live stream on other platforms, it's the audience that you have on that platform.
Yeah.
It's not being shown to
like
anyone
Instagram
else
or
who doesn't follow
YouTube
you.
or
Yes,
like
exactly.
if you like watched, because we stream on TikTok, YouTube, Twitch at the same time, and the numbers of viewers are vastly different because TikTok's constantly sending to new people for discovery.
Yeah.
And then YouTube is kind of like a place to house all those live streams. So if someone misses one, they can always go back and watch. Or if a really funny moment happens in something, we've got it there and it's like in the archives. So that's why we like streaming on both, but definitely just like start and do something in the stream. Like I think it's a bit daunting if you just get on and you're just like reading the chat, because you might only have a couple of people in at the start. Your first live stream, and I say your because Alessia like got on a live stream for the first time and I was like, no one's going to watch this. Like you're just a girl like putting her makeup on in the bedroom. Like no one cares. I said that to her and she was like, I don't care. I'm just going to try it.
Sure.
And
we had like 5,000 followers at the time.
And you probably had like 5 people on the first time.
I had 5 people and I was like, oh, this is crazy. Like, where are you from? And I specifically remember one of the first people ever, her name was Cece. And she just sat and spoke to me the whole time that I was on. And I was like, oh, this is great. Cool. I want to do this again. And then we did it again and we had 10 people on.
Yeah.
Then we had 30. Then we had 300. And then we had 10,000 at one time. And I was like, it's grown and grown.
Yeah, that's wild. And then for an individual wanting to start like a live stream, because I feel like live stream is so much more fun when you've got 2 people.
True.
You're bantering off each other. You're cooking or attempting to cook.
Yeah.
Like there's that natural dynamic there. What would you suggest or recommend for like an individual that's like wants to do live streaming but like A, doesn't know what to talk about, B, you don't want to have a script there to be like, hey guys, these are all the things that I wanted to talk to you about today. So where would you suggest for an individual to start when it comes to live streaming?
I think touching on what Taz said before, like have something to do, right? And whenever I feel like I don't know what to talk about when I'm alone on the live streams, because like I'll do my makeup, I commentate what I do. So if you're like washing the dishes, you could commentate and be like, oh, that was so dirty, and just like talk to yourself, really.
Sure. Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Like you can explain what you're doing. If you're, doing a pottery live stream, you can be like, okay, I'm going to cone it up. Teach us something. What are you doing? Or tell me something new about yourself. Because in the early stages, a lot of the time the people who are watching you probably don't know much about you when you're first starting off. Tell them about you. Give them a reason to follow you, give them a reason to love you, or give them some kind of value in some different way.
Yeah. And sometimes it's that conversation and just asking people their names, and I would also say like if people are confident enough and have friends in the industry who are creators, they could also collaborate. Like if they were unsure and wanted to try it out, speak to a creator friend that live streams regularly and ask to like sit in with them and like bring something to the table. Like we cook every Monday night. That can be done with a third person as well. So there's that option. And I feel like you can even watch things on a live stream. So there's things called watch parties. This is more probably in the Twitch space. So all the time there's people watching like popular TV shows and their communities just watching with them or a movie.
Yeah, fair.
So there's so many different ways to use live streaming. It's just you got to lean into your interests. If you love a chat, then you can sit there and just talk to the people that come on. Even if it's like one person, you'll probably have a great chat with them. But if you are nervous, do something that you feel comfortable doing. It might be doing a jigsaw puzzle or something just to get you started.
I love it. Now, you've worked with massive brands like Amex, I think Spotify, Red Bull, like the list goes on. Tinder, Virgin. I could be here for like half an hour, I'll be honest. What have you learned about, like obviously I run a marketing agency. One of the biggest things that we find with brands working with creators is brands wanting to brief the creators and tell them how to do things. And we're like, that's not how it works. What's the best way do you feel as though brands can work or engage with creators?
Yeah, I actually read something today on LinkedIn from someone saying I think the best briefs come when you don't make the brief and then find the influencers. I think it actually starts when you find some creators that you're like, oh, they do something really cool. How about like we integrate them with our brand? And when I read that, I was like, when I think about all of the campaigns we've been a part of that are really memorable and they feel right, they almost feel like the brief was made for us, even though they might not have done that.
Or the brief is completely open and they're like, make it your own.
But I think there is a limit to that still, because sometimes when it's too open, it's like, oh my gosh, what do we do here? You know, like, so I do personally like a little bit of guidance from the brands on like what they're hoping to achieve or whatever.
It's a very like millennial Gen Z approach. Right there. She's like, I like guidance. She's like, let me be free.
Yeah, literally.
Like obviously give me the product and stuff and tell me like things that you want mentioned in it. But like, let me come up with how I want to present it.
Totally.
Yeah, and that's something that the All Kind championships that we did really well.
Millie did that so
well.
Like
they just let us know like what the goal was, which was for more like young people to do the mental health training. And then they were like, whatever kind of content you want to create, go ahead and do that. And some people did Instagram stories. We did a 24-hour live stream. Now, if you gave us a brief on that and said to do like a TikTok and stuff, we might have not even done the campaign. So I think having that flexibility just allows us to be creative, which is literally our job.
Yeah, literally. So what are some mistakes that you've seen or maybe heard about brands making working with creators? Or what are some don'ts?
Yeah.
If a brand is looking to work with a creator, what would you tell them not to do?
For me, I know the answer to this one because I'm passionate about this one. I think a lot of brands see creators as just another ad spot, like similar to like a Facebook ad or a TV slot or a billboard. Like I'm just going to look at your views and that's how I dictate if this was a successful campaign. And I just think like we bring so much more to the table than that. Like we literally are human beings with a following that they trust us.
Yeah.
Like when we say we use a product, we're not just saying it to get a check. We use the product and our following knows that. And if we break that trust, that will affect like our standing with them too. So
I think another mistake that they make is thinking that it's like fully transactional. And it's like, we are so excited and so willing to build relationships to better understand, you know, how we can support the brand or whatever product that they're launching. When Taz and I get to meet some of like the founders of brands or even just the marketing teams of these big brands, I'm like, okay, I will rally for this now because like I want to be a part of it. And I feel like that translates when we create content as well.
Of course.
Like if we've met and love the people behind the brand, when we get in front of the camera, it's like, it's authentic, it's exciting, and that really shows in the content that we create for them as well. So don't think that it's just like, oh yeah, I'm just like paying them and then goodbye. It's like build that relationship out with them because it can turn into this really beautiful long-term thing if you really wanted it to. And we love that.
I think people like the people that follow creators would like that as well because they're seeing that brand work with that creator regularly and it's like, oh, well, they must really like them. It's not just a one-off thing.
Totally.
So, yeah, we definitely love meeting people behind the business. And it also, a lot of people haven't done a lot of TikTok campaigns yet or like social media campaigns and they're like nervous. Like it's their job on the line and they're like betting on us to do a good job. So when they kind of express to us like, oh, you know, this is our first campaign, we can like support them and give them more information than we usually do. Like maybe we script out a little bit more or do a bit of a storyboard so that they can go to their boss and be like, okay, I think it's going to be okay, this one, you know?
Totally. You do have to hold their hand. Like I think a huge amount of, I mean, we see it all the time, like especially even my own profile, like I'm like, I won't take on campaigns that are like just one-off. Like I'll only take on a campaign if it's a long-term one. A, because I don't have to make money off of it because I make money elsewhere, which is the beauty of that. But I do think there's value in a long-term relationship. Because I'm like, if I'm not using the product over a period of months or years, like why would I talk about it? And if I am using it over a period of months or years, I'm going to talk about it naturally anyway on my platform. So
literally.
Have you ever turned down a brief?
Yes, we turned down a lot of briefs for a lot of different reasons too. Like maybe
Have you had a strange brief
strange brief.
that you're just like, oh, not really our cup of tea?
We do. We
Or
get
a brief where people haven't done their research?
Yeah, oh, so many of those.
we get a lot of briefs where they ask us to do things and I'm like, they have not watched our content.
Yeah.
There is no way they've watched
like,
any of our content.
Could you act out and do like this like acting skit and like cry in it or whatever? And it's like, oh, you haven't seen our page. Like we don't do skits.
Yeah.
You know?
So I think
Thanks, but no thanks.
Yeah, I think it's like it was a shock to us when we started receiving briefs like that sometimes, because our whole thinking was if we make really good content, we'll attract like the good brands to like want to work with us. And then we started noticing it's not just about follow count, good content, good views. There's so much more to it than that.
Yeah.
And I forgot what the question was that you
what I was
asked,
about.
but I was going to look back to it.
You're like, we'll circle back to it. I said, did you turn down any briefs?
Oh, yes. I think like we probably say no more than we say yes. And that obviously comes from a bit of like, you have to be in a good financial position to say no.
Yeah.
So I don't want to, like, if there's a younger creator that's watching this right now, like, I think there's a bit of that story of like, you have to like work with only brands that are 100% aligned and it has to be at your rate. And like, there's so many high expectations, but when you get into this and it's your livelihood, you have to consider sometimes the brand is a perfect fit and then the brief is like, oh, but you got to make it work.
Yeah.
Because to say no is a privilege.
Yeah,
and
it really is.
we kind of learnt that the hard way because we recently like had a challenge where the way we do our business and take on deals is we look at what we've said yes to. So we don't do an ad every week. We do a certain amount of ads a year, like a certain number.
Yeah.
And if we've ticked that off for the quarter, we don't take on more. Sure. So we kind of locked in a bunch of work and then for all different reasons, I think like 5 deals fell through and we had turned down, because we locked in that work, we turned down, you know, a lot of money because we had the work. So I think you learn as you go in this space and maybe, you know, 12 months ago I would have said a different answer to it, but now you just don't know what's around the corner sometimes.
Yeah.
Like we thought we were prepared and then we weren't.
Yeah.
In saying that though, definitely, but I think as well, like I would like take my hat off to us as well, because we have been approached during that difficult time of being like, holy moly, how are we going to make it through the next 2 months?
Yeah.
And we have been approached with by brands that don't align with budgets, and we've still said no. So it's just, there's certain things that you can make work, and then there are your non-negotiables as well.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Of course. Is there a brand that you haven't yet worked with that you want to work with?
I'd love to work with Tesla.
Cool.
But I don't have a Tesla, so I don't know.
It's fine. Let's manifest it. Let's put it out there. Tesla, if you're listening.
Yes.
I think I would love to work with Luxury Escapes. I feel like there's a lot of like opportunity for like us and like some travel content as well. And we've seen that when we worked with Virgin on our Uluru trip, and we also saw it. What was another one that we did?
We went to Adelaide and we like vlogged that experience.
South Australia tourism. That was
Into
really
your
good.
travel girl era.
Yeah. Like
Okay.
we're ready for it.
Luxury Escapes, come on down.
We're ready.
We're ready.
No, we're doing this really cool, well, Taz is doing this really cool series on our page at the moment called 30 Before 30.
I've seen it.
Yeah.
Amazing.
Yeah, so I feel like we could incorporate like any type of brands in that as well.
It's going to be a fun series.
How do you
that
feel
one.
about turning 30?
Oh, that's a heavy question. I have mixed feelings. I think as amazing as my life is right now, I had different expectations for where I would be at 30 years old when I was 20.
Of course.
So just kind of coming to terms with that. Like I thought I'd have kids by now.
Same.
And now I'm like, do I want kids? I don't know. So there's a lot of like deep self-reflection going on. And also like you see people you went to school with, I know you shouldn't compare, but like it's hard not to sometimes when your friends have like really good paying jobs and we're just like, damn, like trying to get by month to month at the moment. But I feel like as I get older, like it gets better. Like every year, life just gets better. So I don't know why I'm so scared.
Can I tell you as someone that has gone over the hump of 30?
Please.
Like I'm 32, right?
Okay, yep.
So I feel like as you get up to 30, you're like, oh my God, it's 30 years old and it's there and it's going to happen. And like, it's 30.
Yeah.
And then you get to 30 and you're like, I'm okay. Like no one's died. Like life is good. I've got more money than I had when I was 20.
Yeah.
This is okay.
Yeah.
And then you get 31 and then you go 32 and you're like, actually things are getting better.
Yes.
Like, and I think you're right. Like there is this huge thing when women turn 30. Like, why? Your biological clock is ticking.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
it's like, okay, cool. Like I get it. I don't need to be told again. Like I had a friend who's like in like midwifery and she's just like, technically over 30, you're considered a geriatric when it comes to like motherhood. And I was like, wow, I didn't feel shit before, I do now. So thank you. Like, and I think there's this huge thing about 30. When boys turn 30, they're like, fuck yeah, another year. Like, come on down. Like, they don't think twice about it. But with women, it's such a huge thing of like, have I got to where I want to get to? Like, am I going where I want to go? Like, I feel like women have this like, men have midlife crises at like 45, 50. Women have 30-year crisis, right? Like they hit 30 and they're like, and then they hit 31 and they're like, oh,
sweet,
we're fine. Like nothing's falling apart. Everything's going to be fine. So I'm excited to see what you do 30 before 30.
Yes.
If you could go back, I know you said you have no regrets.
Yes.
And you don't have to have regrets to answer this question. But if you could go back and do anything differently, or if you could go back and do something again, would there be a different way that you'd do it?
I would, the reason I was going to say like I would probably spend a little bit more time on like the networking side of things. Sure. And I know it's a bit of an icky word, but like I feel like we spent so much time trying to get better at our craft, which is still very important. But a lot of opportunities come from your networks and like brands have to trust you. People within the brands talk. So I would probably spend more time like building those relationships with people in the industry. Sure. But we didn't actually have that chance because we started in COVID lockdowns. So the first 2 years there were no events. But if I was a creator starting now, I would be putting my hand up to go to like so many events and talking to everyone in the room.
Sure. Yeah. I would probably say I would suggest collaborating with other creators more. We didn't do our first collaboration, I think, until like last year with one of our really amazing friends, Brad. He's a fantastic creator. But I would suggest like reach out and ask because I feel like being in this industry now, originally I would have been like, I'm way too scared to ask another creator if they want to collaborate. Like if they want to collaborate, maybe they'll ask me. They won't. You know, we're all too nervous. So like just reach out and ask. The worst thing that they can say is no. Yeah. But otherwise, like I would collaborate with other people more.
Yeah, I love that. I have this saying that I live and die by that's like, don't ask, don't get.
Yeah.
Like if you don't ask, like you'll never know.
Literally.
Yeah.
Like the worst thing they can say is like, no, sorry, not for me. Nice. I love it. So last couple of questions before we go to the quick fire questions. Mistakes. Everyone makes them. They become the foundations in which you build your life on. And I think the more comfortable you can become with making mistakes or failing, you know, if you have a good relationship with like, if this fails, I'll just go back to what I was doing before, which it sounds like you did. You have a good relationship with failure, right? Like you're like, it's not this big scary thing. A lot of people don't start things because they're scared and they're scared of failing. But mistakes, everyone makes them. We make them weekly. I openly talk about the biggest fuck ups that I had in my last 10 years of my career because it's what's made me me.
Yeah.
Have you had any mistakes that kind of come top of mind that you're like, oh, that was a big one, but we learned so much from it?
I think like what Taz mentioned before that we've like recently gone through is when we took on a certain amount of like deals, and then they all fell through. I think a big mistake, like kind of on our half, is like we assumed it was locked in and we hadn't had the contract signed yet. And we just were like, yep, cool. That was a huge, huge mistake and like has not benefited us financially at all, that we have learnt a massive lesson from. Like nothing's locked in until it's locked in, you've filmed and like it's ready to rock and roll, or it's even been posted like at this point.
It's just hard though, because some of those situations, like one of them cancelled because it was a PR crisis. So we wouldn't have done the deal anyway. So it is, hindsight's so great, isn't it?
Wonderful thing.
But I think our biggest lessons have probably been in the financial kind of space. I remember like early on, I don't even know if you were doing this full time yet, but you must have been, because we just started paying ourselves. So we just started, you know, getting a salary. And I remember speaking to our accountant and being like, how much do we pay ourselves? And he's like, that's up to you. And I was like, oh God, like I have to figure this out now. So we started off very small, you know, and then we must have got like a big deal come through, or we got a lot of work in the quarter and we got paid out like all at one time. So a big sum of money came into our account. And I remember looking at it and being like, oh my gosh, this would take me like 6 months of working my full-time job to have this. So I was like, perfect. Christmas is coming up. We get a bonus. So transfer us.
You get paid.
Everyone gets paid.
You've turned into Oprah.
Flying high. And then we didn't lock in work for like 3 months after that. And also it takes like 60 days sometimes for brands to pay you. And we felt it. So we learnt really quickly from that, you know, there are expenses within the business. Just because the business has money doesn't mean like it's our money as well. And, you know, overpaying us can hurt the business at this stage that we're in. So we are much more careful now, and we try and have like a bit of cash flow going on. But that's still something we're learning. Like I have no finance training, but I have to do our accounting. You know,
I fucking hate it. I'll be really honest with you. It's like why I pay my financial advisor, my accountant, my bookkeeper keep a good amount of money. So I don't have to do it. I'm like, come to me, I'll approve what I need to approve. And I know what I need to know.
That's the main thing.
I don't want to turn into like Einstein when I'm looking at all these things. I'm like, I don't have like very, very much of like play to your strengths.
100%.
Right? Like I'm not good at accounting. Why the fuck would I spend my time doing it?
Literally.
Right? Like I'm not going to spend 4 hours learning what I can pay someone to do in 30 minutes.
And your time is better spent somewhere else.
Absolutely.
And like that's something we had to learn at the start. And I think a lot of creators kind of go through this, or business owners, where just because you can do all aspects of the business doesn't mean you should.
Absolutely.
Like we, especially us, we need to be like camera facing a lot of the time. So sure, we could do all our emails and all of that, but I think having people that their strength is literally negotiating and contracts and all that stuff, why should we have to learn all that? But like you said, it's good to have like that base level so you can have conversations and no one's going to pull the wool over your eyes. You know what's going on in your business. It's just you're not stuck there for like
you
your
need
whole
to know
day.
your numbers, right? Like you need to know your numbers as a business owner. But do you have to be the person calculating those numbers? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Now, one quick thing before we go to the quick fire question, because it just came into my head from what you said before. You mentioned you have a team.
Yes.
What is your team made up of? Who is in your team?
Me, Taz.
Vibe. You're like, that's it. Thanks for coming. This is the team.
This is us. No, we have our talent manager who secures us like brand work from Born Bred Talent. Her name's Nikki.
Shout out to Nikki.
Shout out Nikki. Yes. We have our publicist and a full-time virtual assistant.
Vibe.
So there's 5 of us.
Okay.
We actually hired a virtual assistant before we even went full-time ourselves.
What do they do for you?
Well, at the start we tracked a lot of things. Like everything was on an Excel sheet. So we were tracking like our follower growth and our engagement rates and all of that. It was a lot of like downloading data and like reporting it back to us. I'm very numbers based. I'm not good at maths, but but
you like when the spreadsheets adds up, like when it makes sense.
The numbers don't lie, and that's something you can't argue with. So I always found like us going to the data a lot. So our virtual assistant now does things like we have our own app for the team. like our followers, and it's called Team Tanda. And she helps us do a lot of like inputting stuff into the app.
Sure.
She also reposts like a lot of our content on platforms that aren't like a priority for us individually right now. So she'll repost on like Facebook and YouTube.
Okay.
She does do like a little bit of Snapchat, but it's
Pinterest.
better. Yeah, Pinterest.
So that's helped us like from the start. All of our content is on every platform now.
Yep.
And, you know, if you look at our accounts on other platforms, like I think Snapchat, we've got 230,000 followers on there. YouTube, we've got like 40K now.
Yes.
Like we're starting to build up across the board, not just on one platform. And I think that was because we had someone reposting our content from literally like 2020.
Yeah.
I love that. I love that. Now, to finish the podcast, because we have gone over time, but I knew that we would because it's us.
Yes.
I have 3 quick fire questions that I ask everybody that comes and sits with me. And you can both answer it. You don't have to answer them quickly. The first question is one brand that comes top of mind for each of you.
Mine is a creator brand. It's by Bridie Drake and it's called Night Sweet Thing. She's got a pajama brand.
Cute.
And I just feel like she is such a gun. She sells out every single release she does. She integrates it into her content seamlessly and she has raving fans
100%.
all over the world for those pajamas. So that comes to mind straight away.
I've only recently entered my pajama era, so I feel like
Check
I'm
them
gonna have
out.
to look at it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
I would have to say mine is Frank Body or Everyday by Frank Body.
Yeah.
Simply just because I love the way that they show up online, but more so I love the events and the community that they're curating. I feel like they do a lot of fun. I feel like they do a lot of like fun and exciting, but also like heartwarming events, which is really cool.
True.
Like we've done like yoga with them or workout classes and things like that, and they're just very like mindful and they're a great team. And
I feel like Frank Body is like the OG brand that like maybe you and I grew up on, maybe not you, but like millennials grew up on in terms of like they were the first real brand to go viral on social with like everyone posting pictures of themselves in the shower covered in this scrub. And like I literally was laughing about it the other day because I was like, in what world would someone be like, you know what, covering myself in coffee granules in the shower at my most vulnerable, that is going to go on my Instagram. But it's like everyone wanted to buy it so that they could post it. And I'm like, I feel like they're the OG brand that kind of made it like viral on Instagram.
Yeah. And even just how I remember their packaging at the time, the
bag,
words, like how they spoke to you as the consumer. It felt like, oh my God, they're speaking to me. They're using my language. And they were just like, I remember that now that you've said that.
Yeah.
It is a bit of a millennial thing, but they're doing really well, like getting the Gen Z audience as well now. So
I feel like they've made a resurgence, you know, like it's like we grew up with them.
Yeah.
And it's like everyone was flying out the door to get this coffee scrub to cover yourself in it. And your bathroom looked like a coffee bean bag had exploded because you was just coffee everywhere. But you were like, it's for the gram.
It's fine.
It's fine. Okay, second question. What is the one thing that you think keeps a brand top of mind?
I would have to say actually showing up. There are so many brands that currently don't even have a TikTok account, which is crazy to me. Like if you're going to reach out and send us a brief for your product to post on TikTok, you need to be having a TikTok account.
Sure.
There's still so much organic reach. There's everything there that you could ever want as a brand and you're not using it. So I feel like the best way to be top of mind is to actually show up on the platform that has the most eyes on it currently. Yeah.
And for me, I agree with that. And I just think another good way to be top of mind is to take risks. Like I think also Gen Z, like they want to see like people do things a little bit like out of the norm, you know? Like I think for me growing up, it was like we wanted everything to be polished. Yeah. It was like if you were running a business from your home, it was kind of like, oh, is it legitimate? Like, but now it's like praised kind of thing. So I think brands that take a bit of a risk, obviously not doing anything that's like outside of their values, but just, you know, like loosening up a little bit and trying some things that they usually wouldn't. I think that keeps it top of mind for me.
Yeah.
Love it. Last question. only because I'm obsessed with quotes.
Yes.
What is a quote that is always top of mind for you?
One quote that's always top of mind for me, I literally have it tattooed on my wrists. I learnt it at Mecca. So it's to choose courage over comfort. However, I do value both of those things. I value courage and I value comfort a lot. But when it comes down to the wire and I have to make a decision, I will always choose courage.
I love that.
Yeah.
I love that.
Yeah, you've always said that since I met you, actually.
I love that.
My one probably is whatever you believe, you're right. That one really stuck with me because I think if you have like low self-esteem, you'll constantly put yourself in positions where you like reaffirm that to yourself, like, oh, I'm not good enough. But I think if you believe, and I even think it's true for like, you know, I grew up kind of saying like, oh, I'm not good at maths. So I never like did well like in that subject. Whereas if I just believed in myself, I probably could have done better there. So now I try and go into situations like a little bit more with a positive mindset, and it does help.
Absolutely it does. Oh my gosh, I think that's the best place to leave it. Alessia, I'm going to do it the other way around. Alessia, Taz. Thank you for joining me on Top of Mind. I'll make sure all of your handles and everything like that are in the show notes so people can find you. But thank you for sitting with me.
Oh, thank you for having us. This has been the best. I loved it. Loved
best.
every second.
The best.
Yes, the best
You
interview.
heard it
Yes.
here first. One last thing from me before you go. If you enjoyed this episode, don't forget to hit the subscribe button or leave us a review wherever you are watching or listening to this podcast.